Hi there. I guess this is my dream come true. I came up with the idea. I was talking to Mark about some of my favourite musicians who I've worked with and who I really admire. So it's a real privilege for me to be up here. I just like to reiterate what Damien said. I'd like to really thank Corrections for their support for the Songbirds program and for Paper Chained, because a lot of the stuff that we do, like our art program and our music program, end up in Paper Chained. And like the most important thing for those guys in there and women in there is to have their story heard. It's incredibly significant. All right, well, we're going to rip into it. I'm just going to have a quick preamble. I'll stand up and do it. Okay, good afternoon, Jim, Reg and Amanda. It's a big privilege and honour to sit here with you brilliant people to talk about our common love, which is writing and performing songs. So the subtitle of the forum is the well-known quote, "Good composers borrow, great composers steal," which is attributed to Igor Stravinsky, who himself borrowed from traditional Russian dances and folk music, as did other great composers such as Bartok, Haydn and Mozart. We all hear modern songs and sometimes think, that sounds a bit like, or even highway robbery. So many modern songs have been pilfered from classical folk and jazz melodies. For example, Pachelbel's Canon in D has been flogged to death by contemporary songwriters, hoping that pedantic classical nerd quotient in society is suitably low enough. And the 70-year copyright limit expiry means open plunder. Of course, we now often hear about modern songwriters suing each other for breach of copyright. The most recent case, of course, being the Ed Sheeran versus Marvin Gaye case. And in Australia, the sad case of Men at Work down under sued by the copyright owner of Kookaburra sitting in the old gum tree for a single phrase used in a solo. So in this day and age, a hit song is a goldmine, hence the exponential rise in mostly justified but sometimes questionable litigation. Fantasy Records even sued the great John Fogerty for writing Old Man Down the Road, saying it ripped off his own Creedence tune, Run Through the Jungle. So he got sued for ripping off his own song. Incidentally, I just read that Here Comes the Sun, written by the late great George Harrison, who of course was also pinged for plagiarising My Sweet Lord, has just achieved an astonishing 1 billion hits on Spotify. Congratulations, George. A cheque for 10 quid is on its way to your family. Okay, so the first known decision of what we now call copyright infringement, this might interest you, Jim, and Reg with your Irish roots, was made in 6th century Ireland by King Diarmaid MacChilbail of Tara, when Colum Chile, an Irish monk, later known as St Columba, visited Abbot Finian of Moville, his old instructor and mentor, and secretly copied a Psalter, or Book of Psalms, in one night, allegorically under a miraculous light, causing a feud over who owned the replica. King Diarmaid's judgment was, to every cow belongs her calf, therefore to every book belongs its copy. That is, old Abbot Finian owned the facsimile. So the Battle of Cool Dremna was later fought over this ruling with over 3,000 casualties. So from right back to early times, songs have been written by individuals, partnerships and teams for pleasure, prestige, patronage and profit. Henry VIII himself was a songwriter of note, and he loved a good jam session and had a stable of minstrels, although I'm sure he turns in his grave every time a Mr. Whippy van drives past. And Frederick the Great of Prussia had an elite team that included Bach himself. In more recent times, we've seen the phenomenon of Tin Pan Alley, the Brill Building and the Motown Corporation churning out songs for the star performers of the day, right up to contemporaries such as Beyonce, Rihanna and Taylor Swift, with their legions of writers all vying for the next big hit. And yet we still have the singer-songwriters like Tom Verlaine, Tom Waits, Tupac, Ed Sheeran, Elliott Smith, Lana Del Rey, Billie Eilish, Baker Boy, Emily Warramurra and the great Bart Willoughby, to name a few, who write songs from their personal experience, even dare say for the love of it. And then we have songs like K-San, My Island Home, and I Was Only 19, written about someone else's experience. I always encourage authenticity and true life stories in prison songwriting. So does a song lose its power or credibility by being written vicariously? We might talk about that later if we get time. Okay, and again, some songs are sincerely written in tribute to another's greatness or influence. For example, Brian Wilson wrote Don't Worry Baby as a homage to the Ronettes' Be My Baby, a song that blew young Brian's mind, written and produced by his idol, Phil Spector. Other examples include Jonathan Richman, Velvet Underground, Master Blaster by Stevie Wonder, Bob Dylan's Song for Woody, The Replacements' Alex Chilton, and of course, Bernie Hayes by McBodybag. Wish Bernie was here. On the Songbirds 3 Prison album, which is available here, it's this magnificent album. This is the third one. It's available here at the Black Books sale, and also Reg and Jim, I think, have bought some merch, some of the new albums, and congratulations Amanda, Jim and Reg on your new albums. It's good to see us old folks still putting stuff out. It's fantastic. And they get better with age, but no one, yeah, that's right. It's all about the young people these days, isn't it? So on the Songbirds 3, there's a song we wrote together with a lady called Rania, who's a 25-year-old Syrian refugee, and she loved Jim Morrison, and she found his voice and music a way to help tolerate incarceration. She asked me to arrange it and perform it to sound like the Doors, like Twist My Arm. So you'll hear that song for Jim on there. It sounds exactly like, you know, a combination of all the great Doors songs, which was a lot of fun to do for me. So some writers are more relaxed, even flattered by imitation. For example, Ray Davies once said, "The funniest thing was when my publisher came to me on tour and said, the Doors would use the riff for All of the Day and All of the Night for Hello, I Love You. I said, rather than sue them, can we just get them to own up? My publisher said, they have, that's why we should sue them. Jim Morrison admitted it, which to me was the most important thing," said Ray. And of course, the most important thing is to actually take the idea somewhere else, said Tom Petty, after it was proved that Sam Smith's big hit song, Stay With Me, was almost identical to Won't Back Down. I find his attitude inspirational, although not so remunerative. Finally, most plagiarisms are usually committed unconsciously or subconsciously. I think George Harrison was a good case. I think he was quite embarrassed to find that he'd done that. Okay, so later time permitting, we might discuss the premise. Does a song lose its value and authenticity if it's written purely for commercial gain? Can songwriting teams write a classic song? Is originality, quirkiness and brio being buried under a pile of robotic, formulaic, even AI-generated radio YouTube fodder? Over to you, Miss Amanda. What are your thoughts on the fine line between theft, tribute and taking the original idea further into uncharted original territory?
Man, I'm straight in the deep end. Well, theft is, this is something I deal with on a fairly regular basis because even though I've just put out an album of songs, I'm actually a screen composer is my day job, so I'm writing music for film and TV, and in that medium we have a thing called temp music where editors lay in temporary music while they're cutting the film, and a lot of the time directors, producers, pretty much everybody working on the film gets very attached to that temp music and they love it, and when you do something different they sometimes don't take kindly to that. So as screen composers, we're constantly treading that fine line between making something similar but not plagiarism, obviously, not a suable offence. I think that happens in the advertising jingle writing world a lot too. With songwriting, not so much. I think it's kind of like you absorb all the music that you've loved through your life growing up, and it inevitably sort of becomes part of your creative DNA in a way, and whether that's in regard to lyric writing or structure or even just the sound of a song. So I'm going to leave it there for the minute.
Jim, what do you think?
Yes, well, I'm kind of suffering from imposter syndrome sitting up here because I don't even think I'm even a songwriter, but I actually am. Because I'm just a fan of music and I don't really know much about songwriting except I think it's about bewilderment and transcendence really when you write. It's not about trying to have a hit. I mean, you can do it that way if you want, but maybe I've done that way unconsciously. But I think I just know how music affects me, and I think that's how you write songs. It's like you're inspired to the point of a sound or a chord change or a riff. Listen to River Deep Mountain High or something like that. That's the most monumental riff of all time. It's fantastic. And so I don't really know, but I think with theft, it's Pete Seeger said something like, songs are like laws. People are always inventing new laws from old laws to sort of suit the modern times, and I think songs are like that too. They can be rewritten. Look at He Was a Friend of Mine, that Bird song, I played it the other night, and that's a really old traditional folk song. Bob Dylan, went to Ireland and he actually stole a lot of Irish songs. He admitted it from the Clancy Brothers and people like that. So, and a lot of that ended up going into his sort of 60s oeuvre. So I think it's just part of storytelling. It changes as it goes, and whether there are laws that come in and protect that, I don't think you really can. It's an interesting sort of area, though. That's all I've got to say.
It's a fine line, isn't it? You know, what do you think, Reg? You were telling me that you ripped yourself off.
Tick, tick. Yeah, I did. I realised. I mean, the thing is, if you're a songwriter, you often have the anxiety if you come up with a reasonable melody. You think, oh, I've probably stolen it from someone else. I mean, sometimes you have and sometimes you haven't. But I stole from myself, and I hadn't realised it. I had a song called Lord and Lady Pumpkin on a dog trumpet, a previous dog trumpet album, and the album we've just released is a song called Tudor Blues, which is an instrumental, and then I realised I'd stolen the melody, so I've got hold of a lawyer and I'm taking action against myself. I'm hoping to make some money out of it. But I mean, all art, whether it's music or writing or painting, it's all built on previous artists or contemporary artists as well. So everything's resting on the shoulders of stuff that's come before. So I don't mind the idea of stealing or being influenced by other stuff, as long as it's not too blatant. I mean, as you said, a lot of Bob Dylan's melodies were stolen from old folk songs. And probably, I don't know, who's got the copyright on the Bible? Because probably the oldest song in the world would be Rivers of Babylon. So Boney M probably should be sued because the words are from a psalm that was written about 5th or 6th century BC. So yeah, someone could make some money out of that.
God might make money out of that.
Yeah, well, he might, but he didn't write the Bible. It was written by humans, as far as I know.
Damn it.
Divinely inspired, perhaps, but still humans.
But do you guys think, and back to you, Amanda, do you guys think, sometimes it's good to list stuff out of things you admire and maybe take them a little in a different direction? I know part of our songwriting workshops, we often get people, they write lyrics and say, look, I haven't got a melody, I can't really think of anything. Why don't you sing like a Rihanna song good or something, and then eventually we'll just change the chords and the bass line and eventually we'll come up with something new. Is that a process that you go through? Sometimes you think, look, I'm going to write a song that's got, horses in it, so I'll go dum, 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 you know what I mean? I'll borrow it for some Western, soundtracks or something like that. Do you go for that and then change it to something original?
Not so much that, but definitely borrow elements of things. And in fact, I was doing some research because I'm going to do a sonic journey with my partner Simon on the ABC about the songs of James Bond. And I was reading about Duran Duran's View to a Kill and the creation of that song. And they just went into the studio with the producer who was the great bass player from Chic, Bernard. Do you know his second name? Bernard Edwards. And the drummer was like, I'm just going to play the drum beat from Honky Tonk Woman. And you listen to View from a Kill and it's exactly that beat. Wow. So I think that's probably more the most common way that people appropriate little pieces, pick from parts from songs like Magpies and turn them into something different.
Well, Jim's a bit like that. I always admired him. I want to be the one by Midnight Oil, where he puts in that a little riff straight out of West Side Story, which is great. It just comes out of the blue, and it's this great, fantastic song. And then all of a sudden, there's this little, Leonard Bernstein riff in there. What do you reckon, Jim? What was it?
Well, that was the first gig I ever did, playing West Side Story on a bush bass at the school concert hall, the Assembly Hall.
You heard it here first.
And I had was a broomstick and a tea-chest and a piece of string, and I just went for it. It was like it kicked ass. But the song, so it might have gone in there, at that time, I suppose. But I actually didn't write that. I think Rob Hurst wrote that. He just hummed it to me. So I think he was quite a fan of the old musicals and things like that.
Well, I know Hursty. When I was in the band, we're huge Bugs Bunny fans. So what's that song? Turn It Off the Light. that lyric.
Cold change.
Cold change, you turn it off the light. It's like Muggsy when he goes, turn it off the light. It's a love Muggsy, in Bugs Bunny. And another Bugs Bunny reference I think I picked up with Jim, that he's into the TS Piccadilly, the change from the major to the minor. In the Dead Heart, you hear the do-do-do-do-do, and it goes to the major. And I said, were you influenced by that Bugs Bunny cartoon with that little cave guy? When he's getting chased by the dinosaur, and he goes, diddle-it, 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 which is a piece called Fingal's Cave, and I think it's by Haydn or someone like that, isn't it?
I just used to love the time signature of that when I was a kid. It kept slipping. It's like 9/8 or something. It's in this strange...
It was amazing, wasn't
time
it?
signature. It seemed to sort of follow the movements of the tectonic plates that the duck was walking through, or the dinosaur, whatever it was.
Yeah, well...
So is Murray actually right about the Bugs Bunny influence?
Yeah, I actually never think about it.
Well, let's face it, I think most of us were introduced to classical music through Bugs Bunny. You think about it, all that guy, the Elmer Fudd when he's, the Viking in the opera.
You should get a job as a copyright lawyer, Murray. Picking stealings.
Well, I think a lot of people plunder classical songs because of the 70-year copyright limit. Basically, it's open plunder. I think you can just go, you can do whatever you like. I mean, I've got a whole list of songs here that were actually plundered from classical songs. I think look here. I mean, can you think of any at all, Amanda, that come to mind?
No, but I think we should move the conversation away from plunder and plagiarism and onto perhaps more inspiring things like the Muse and inspiration. What do you think?
I think it's a really good...
This is making me paranoid, this conversation.
Well, it can be just slight borrowing. I mean, sometimes if you play a song, one of your favourite songs, and just take the chord progression, and then you can come up with a completely different melody over the same chord progression.
Yeah. Exactly right.
It's what makes a song tick. It's like, that's why I get out of bed in the morning. You listen to a song and you kind of go, God, that's good. How does that work? And you sort of sit at the piano or something, you're trying to figure out the moves and like a little modulation, or it might be a song like Caroline No, the great Beach Boys song. It's got the best middle eight of all time written in. It's just, I don't know what he did, but it just slips into it like butter. It's just unbelievable, and it's so inspiring. And you sit at the piano and try to work it out. It's really complicated. It's like, but it's a classical music kind of chord movements and modulations, and that stuff is the real thing of songwriting. It's just to get those little moves, and you might not actually, you might steal it actually, but it never will be the same because you're different to the person that wrote it, and it will never. Your influences and your cultural background and your upbringing will bring a whole different thing to the table. So I'm not sure that it's ever going to be quite the same, even if you do rip it off. It'll all come out different, and people will have an objective view of it, which will all be coloured by your persona. And being inspired by things is just what it's all about. I don't think you can sort of stop listening to things and I better not be influenced by that. I just don't think that'll fly, will it?
Yeah, well, I know you and I have a great love of Brian Wilson. He was influenced by everything from doo-wop, the Four Freshmen to jazz to Debussy. I've got the Brian Wilson. Have you got that Brian Wilson piano album where he just plays the songs on piano?
No.
Oh, you should get it. It's incredible. It sounds. If you listen to it, you'd swear you're listening to like Debussy, or it's just amazing. Or Bernstein or so. It's just.
I've got Benny Anderson from ABBA's piano record.
Yeah, well, Benny was a genius.
It's really great. It's really something else.
Benny was underrated. We'll talk about
Benny.
Yeah, Benny was. What about Bjorn's guitar work? Incredible. I think look, it's such an open field, isn't it? I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with stealing stuff, and the great composers to me, like Brian Wilson, even Paul McCartney, John Lennon, they just bring stuff together. And all of you guys are in bands that have brought lots of influences. The Mentals, for example, to me, you've brought so many great influences together, like your Handel Taylor, your Hawaiian, rhythm and blues. That's what made the Mentals so great. They went from all different so many different things going in there, but still good to dance to and good to sing along with, and great lyrics. What do you reckon?
Yeah, thanks, Murray.
You'll get there, Reg. You'll get there one day, mate.
Well, I mean, this is slightly off that subject, but another sort of slightly stealing thing is, what about the robots writing songs in the style of artists, and doing it so convincingly that some of their fans now prefer the robot songs to the real ones, and that's starting to happen. So what do you reckon about that?
Well, I just heard a version of Alone Again Naturally, the great Gilbert O'Sullivan song sung by Paul McCartney. It's an AI. It's incredible, and it's a beautiful song, but with Paul's voice, it just goes to another level. So that was quite good.
Well, I don't know. I mean, doesn't it take all the fun out of it?
Oh, of course it does.
Of course it does. Something.
No, it is. It's quite disturbing.
But it's like this whole thing of what people like. Someone wrote the first chapter of their book, and they got AI to write the rest of it because they couldn't be bothered finishing it, because they were a good starter but a bad finisher, and it all was amazing. And so, and then people liked it, and yet it's sort of like, well, no one cares what goes into the pudding. They just want to eat the pudding. But it's the fun bit, isn't it? Writing it. I mean, that's the whole thing. I'd hate for that to be taken away from me.
Do you think the robots enjoy writing things?
I don't know. They could probably convince themselves they did. They'd find a Wikipedia thing that would say that they would.
I think they're too busy hoovering the entirety of all created music, and once they've absorbed that, then they'll enjoy making their own patchwork versions of those things.
Yeah, I'll just get a pair of wire cutters and cut it off with a PowerPoint.
Good saying, it is disturbing, but you'll never, like I said before, you're never going to have the input of someone like, a Tom Waits or a Tom Verlaine or a Bart Willoughby. You're never going to get that authenticity from an AI. It's something, I don't know how you can tell. How do you reckon you can tell, Reg? What do you, between...
Well, I don't think people can't tell. I mean, the fans of some of these people. So I read something about Drake, the pop star. The guy writing this article, his son was a fan of Drake, and the son preferred the robot versions to Drake's new stuff. So, so what's going on there?
Crazy kids. So look, I was going to say, we'll get on to the topic. Like Amanda said, I think it's good to talk about what makes a song really unique. And I picked 3 songs, and I don't think you guys may agree, but to me, 3 songs, I always think of songs that really sound different, but just take you away to another world. One for me was See Emily Play by Pink Floyd, and some of Syd Barrett's earlier work, and even songs like Black Knight by Deep Purple, which I later found out ripped off the Blues Magoos and Ricky Nelson's, his song Summertime, the same riff. So, nothing sacred. But you think of all the songs, like The Rain in the Park and other things by the Cowsills, another song that just takes you away to another world, The one I chose from the Mentals that I really love, and every time I listened to it through headphones last night, it's just a masterpiece, is Berserk Warriors. Reg, what do you reckon?
My brother wrote that one, and that's one of my favourite Mentals songs. We still play it. We don't play with the Mentals anymore. We've got a band called Dog Trumpet where we pretty much play that one every night. And it's my brother sort of likes jazz, and he actually did. He went to the con for I think 6 weeks or something. So he knows a few jazz chords. So I'm pretty much a simpleton, musically. I'm pretty much a three chord folk player. So having to play Berserk Warriors is quite tricky for me. You should know, you've played it, Murray.
Well, yeah, that was my favourite song to play when I was with the Mentals.
It's got some hard chords in it, it's got some hard chords.
I remember I went to your place and you showed me what you played, and I'm going, oh my God, that's fantastic. The part that you came up with was brilliant. That's another thing I think, about Greedy Smith was, he used to always say to me, oh, you're a really good keyboards player, and he was always paranoid. But I said to him, mate, it's not about being a good keyboards player, it's about being the brilliant parts that you put into the songs. The arrangements you come up with, and I'm sure Jim would agree with that as well. I think Pete Townsend once said, I don't want to get too good on the piano because it might ruin my songwriting. I think John Lennon also said that.
Yeah, it's sort of the left hand of the piano player always gets in the way of the bass player. But I used to like Richard Wright from Pink Floyd because he just played really simple parts that were really effective. And there was nothing much going on, but they were just the glue that held the whole thing together. I love the way he didn't play.
Yeah, he was an incredibly underrated great keyboards player. But to me, some of the heroes are not so much the technical geniuses; it's the guys who put the parts in. The parts that are memorable, and the little counter melodies and all that stuff. Would you agree, Amanda, with that?
Yeah, I would. That's what makes a band, I guess, rather than a bunch of session musicians. Not that they can't come up with some good stuff as well, but there's something about the idiosyncrasies and the personalities of the band. And band is sort of like a family because you all know each other really well, and you feel relaxed enough to try stuff out. And that's where I think that's a sort of environment where people can come up with those intrinsic, melodic, harmonic, rhythmic parts that take a song to the next level.
Yeah, and a lot of it's relatively accidental. It's, you're playing the chords, and then the way you play the chords might be interesting or become a part, it's...
Accidental or just ineptness in some cases.
and there's that element of as you were saying, Murray, about songs that affect you. It is a mysterious, magical sort of thing. It's not something. If you could write down the instructions, you'd be able to come up with hit songs very easily, but you can't. It's mysterious.
Well, collaboration is a wonderful thing. It's like sometimes you can't write it all, and someone else can just fill in the gaps. I remember there's a song we had, and I did a demo of it with Martin from our band, and it was good music, and it had all the elements of a sort of a good Midnight Oil song, but the lyrics that I wrote were just terrible. They were just terrible. I thought, they were so bad, and we recorded the backing track, and we had to kind of get on a plane the next day and go and play in America or something like that. And then Rob walked in and he went, I know what this is about. This is about the Rainbow Warrior. And here comes the Hercules. Here come the submarine sinking South Pacific dreams. And it was just, And that's when I really realised that, oh my God, this is very potent, this group of people that can come up with something like that. I couldn't come up with that. There's no way. And you have to be open to that. And sometimes I find collaborative work really rewarding. It can really be the best way to go. Even if you don't like that collaboration, you can always say no. You can fight it, but often it's going to be take it somewhere else and take it higher.
Yeah, you all come from bands with multiple songwriters, so
yeah.
Has it ever led to fisticuffs?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Who one was Garrett Whitney's got longer reach, hasn't he? Peter Garrett.
What's he got?
Longer reach.
Oh, longer reach, yeah. I wouldn't want to fight Pete. It can, but I think it's, I think, in our case it was like whatever the best idea was, won, and you couldn't really fight that, like everyone would kind of go, well. I think there's always one person in the band too that has the final say. As a social group, because bands are like, there's a mother figure, there's a father figure, and then there's a child which is totally irresponsible and will not listen, and then there's like the cruel uncle that just loves people suffering or just them writhing in agony, and then there's the and I like to think I was the mother figure in the band, but I probably wasn't. I was probably more like the cruel uncle. But and then there's the one who has the final say, and then they'll always go, that was good. Well, they go, maybe later for that one. There'll always be someone in there that'll have to, probably like the quiet one. What did Brian Eno say? Listen to the quiet voice. And it really is a bit like that in a band.
That's fantastic.
Well, there was no fisticuffs in the Mentals that I recall, but there was a certain amount of bitter competition, between the different songwriters to get your songs on the album or as a single. So, but that's kind of useful as well. That competition in bands, and also, hopefully means you come up with something interesting or something better or whatever.
Yeah, ours was a bit more gentlemanly and passive aggressive, dark. Like it'd come out 5 years later in some truck stop in Wangaratta at 3 a.m, like, that was the way you did that in that song that really pisses me off. No, it was very much more gentlemanly and you know, built up resentment over a long period of time.
That's the way it should be too.
That's right. Yeah, the long
It's a
suffering.
good description of the go-betweens as well.
Yeah, what about the go-betweens?
Well, that's what I thought. I thought, you know,
How was it?
You never know.
How was it coming into the go-betweens, Amanda, with two such strong songwriters? And I'm listening to Tallulah and 16 Lovers Lane, just brilliant stuff, just beautiful. How was it coming into that sort of ethos? Because we're going to talk about Cattle and Cane in a minute. I know you didn't write it, but how was it coming into that situation?
Well, it was a big adventure for me because I was very young at the time, and I didn't fully realise in the beginning how respected and what a loyal legion of fans that the band had, which are nevertheless small and cultish. But yeah, there was a lot of competition between Robert and Grant, but as Jim said, it was kind of passive-aggressive and not spoken aloud. But I think ultimately, yes, it led to some great songs, because usually 10 songs per album, 5 songs each, only the best 5 songs made it onto the album. You ended up generally with pretty high quality songs, and then the competition for the single and who would get to make the video, and yeah, it was all about that, and there was definitely resentments at times, but I think what band doesn't have that?
No, there's no. When we look at the history of many bands, there's often they start off getting on pretty well, but they often end up in bitter legal disputes, which is unfortunate.
I think the Police used to hate each other, didn't they? They used to have fist fights. And I remember once we supported Crowded House in Darwin in mixed relations, and we went, oh, we'll get to meet the boys afterwards and have a few drinks, and they had this huge fist fight and jumped in the van and pissed off. Same with UB40, we played with them in Melbourne, we thought, oh great, we'll get to meet UB40. Same thing, they had this massive fight in the dressing room, we were bashing each other up and that. And, oh, what the hell, we just went home and had a party on our own, yeah, too bad, eh? So, sometimes you think, oh, you're going to meet your idols, and they turn out to be like, just like...
Folks.
So getting back to Cattle and Cane, this to me is like, let's listen to that again for a head. And there's a lot of resemblance between that and Berserk Warriors. I love the way that, in the end, how that vocal bit comes in. It's just totally out of sync, like somehow it works. And Lindy's drumming is just like something out of Fela Kuti or something. It's just brilliant. It's like this loop of, it's not in time, it's not out of time, it's just, what do you think of that song?
It's got odd timing, hasn't it? It's got a 5/4 or something.
It's a bar of 5, a bar of 2, and a bar of 4. So however you want to...
That sounds complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated, and it's complicated for a reason, which was that Grant wrote that song, and it was one of the first songs he wrote, and he had the riff first that is the backbone of the song, the da-da-da, the dun-dun-dun-dun, and didn't realise that it was in this compound time signature, and Lindy fastidiously worked out the division of the bars and the beats, and that's how she came up with that part. But I used the word ineptitude before, but it was kind of naive first songwriting. I don't think Grant realised what a complicated time signature it actually was, and it ended up being the hallmark of the song in a way, as well as the lyrics, which are a beautiful story about his father, essentially. And
so Australian, that song. Yeah, it's so Australian. It just takes me away, Cattle and Cane, just the cane fields burning and all that,
It's very North Queensland. It just instantly conjures it. Yeah. Yeah.
Reg, you also played on another great Australian, Sounds of Us by Ganga Jean. I think you played that great solo at the end of that. That's a great Australian song too. In the Cattle Cane.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's Reggie's mad solo.
Yeah, that's me playing on that one. I heard a weird, like a 12-inch version of it recently, where I'm playing all the way through it. I can't remember, but I must have played all the way through it. They only used the bits at the end on the single version. So.
Wow.
But I got $100 for that.
Have another listen, man. You have a listen. It's great. It comes in this mad incredible slide solo in the middle of it. It just takes off. Yeah, it's brilliant. And Reg, of course, you're a huge Hound Dog Taylor fan, and you actually met Hound Dog, didn't you?
I didn't exactly meet him. I saw him play twice. I saw him play at French's, and then at the Lifesaver. So
French's, wow.
Yeah, French's. So I was pretty close, but I didn't talk to him. He probably would have shot me because he had a dispute with his was it Phillips?
Brewer Phillips. He shot him.
Phillips. He shot him in the leg. Yeah, they had a songwriting dispute. Shot him.
They didn't talk to each other for 25 years. They'd sit in the front seat of the Cadillac driving along and say, "You tell asshole," like they told the drummer Ted Harvey, "You tell asshole to pull over soon. I'm going to go for have a piss or something." And they never talked to each other directly. They had to talk through the drummer, which is great. It was fantastic.
The drummer was pretty scary too. I was scared of all of them. Pretty tough Chicago blues guys.
No one better than the Hound Dog.
In fact, I think they played on the street a lot like Hound Dog. They played, sort of busking band to some extent.
Someone told me when they came out, they went to all the trouble of, I think the promoter went to the trouble of getting all these African American ladies who lived in Sydney to prepare all this soul food for them. And they brought it out and they said, "You got any KFC?" It's when KFC first started in Sydney, and I said, "Well, luckily there was one in Bondi," so they went straight there.
They requested some drugs too, and a friend of mine chucked a lump of hash up on stage, and they gratefully accepted it.
It was never seen again. Yeah. So Jim, the song I chose for Midnight Oil, the one that I thought was really quintessentially something that's really unique and different, was The Power and the Passion. To me, it's very, it's so Australian, and it's got so many elements in it. Particularly, I love the way the chorus comes in. It's totally unexpected, that chord that comes in The Power and the Passion. It's so different to the rest of the song, but it works. And then, of course, we've got Gladys here, the wonderful horn section at the end coming in, just magnificent. So, what are your thoughts on that song? What do you think makes it?
Oh, God. Well, I don't... that's sort of, again, back to this collaboration thing. It's, I sort of had the riff for the verse, and used to make these demos at home under my mum's garage. She would have been there, under my mum's living room floor in the basement. It's about 6 inches high, 6 feet high. I could just get in there, and I'd make demos on a 4-track. And I used to make cassettes full of just music. It was just music, and I didn't. Well, what do you think of this? So I give it to the boys, and they go, "Well, oh, that's a good riff, okay." So we played it, and then Rob had that chorus, and it was in E flat minor, I think, or something, which was, nothing like an E flat minor to shock people. And in rock and roll, it's like, forget
Especially
it.
for guitarists, yeah.
But that lift was really what made it work. And then the drum solo, I think, in the middle was a spontaneous thing by Rob, who was very anxious at the time in London and needed a release. So we just put the riff on, and he just went, and that's all the first take of the drum solo that you hear in the song. And that's a big part of the song, actually, that the drum solo. It's like a hook. There can be hooks in songs that aren't necessarily melodic. They can just be noises, or they can be, people use samples like that now in songs. And the horn section thing at the end was just my little thing I had at the end. And again, that was in a major key, and then it was a good way to end it. So it was sort of an organic thing that had not a lot of guiding principle behind it. It was just a sort of a conglomerate of ideas that sort of, made the band kind of sound cool. That was the whole thing, wasn't it? To be cool. Like, I'm trying to look cool up here. Feel very cool.
You look pretty good, Jim. Looking good, mate.
Yeah, so here, mate, yeah.
I was going to say, what's great about it, it's kind of like it's almost like an Australian rap, isn't it?
Well, that was the other thing. It's Pete started rapping over it, and Pine Gap, Big Mac, and all that stuff. And golf was tough till we hit the rough. Uncle Sam and John, quite enough. And that was sort of a great line. And he just threw that around. He just came up with that. And Rob had the chorus melody. He's always the good melody man, Rob. And Pete could sort of rap out a good verse and always had something to say, and it had some something behind it. And I think it's sort of a song that is Australian. It's very Australian, but we weren't trying to be the Cork Hats thing, or the sort of trying to be self-consciously Australian. It just came out because we were Australian, and it just was about here. It didn't really spell anything out particularly, but it just, it wasn't like we're going to write a song about Australia, like I still call Australia home sort of thing, nothing wrong with that, but it's a much more diffuse version of what Australia could be rather than going for the jugular with it, as a songwriter. It's a much more, almost like more of like the continent of Australia, like more spread out, more, varied. There's much more within it, a lot of variation. So I think it's just, it's nice to say that, but I think a lot of our songs were very, come up with very organically. And as you learn how to write songs, that you can lose that sort of innocence. Like you were saying with that song, that there was an innocence to the way it was put together, Cattle and Cane. And in a way, that's sort of what that was too, because we didn't really know how to write songs at that point. And we were always being told, you should get down and write some proper songs. And we couldn't do that. Like, we kind of learned to do it later, more as an exercise for our own amusement, really, to see how we go, whether that was the way to go. And as we went through the career, we got kind of more crafty about it, about writing songs. This one is more, we're going to simplify things. For Diesel and Dust, that album, we just simplified. We took all the guitar solos out and had choruses and verses and bridges and 3-minute songs. But that was because we wanted to do it, and of course the record label couldn't sort of contain their excitement. They were so excited about that, but we weren't. They could have never told us what to do. We were not those sort of people, and very stubborn kind of people. So, but we had to come up with that idea ourselves, and came full circle. But and then as the band went on, we went into more jam-based writing. We just write riffs in a rehearsal room and make songs out of them. Or we tried everything actually in that band. We kind of went all around in circles, chasing songs in different ways of putting them together.
I guess that's the way a lot of songs are written, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, you're just sort of jamming and you come up with some chord and you go, oh, that sounds good, let's do that. That's happened a lot with mixed relations and all that sort of stuff. I remember we were rehearsing a song, Take It or Leave It, and Bart, and another song called Black and White, mixed relations. And I remember when Bart came up with the lyrics, it was like listening to Jeremiah, the prophet, talking about the fall of Babylon, fall of Judah or something. It was just like a chill went down my spine to hear these lyrics coming from, it was just so prophetic and incredible. So sometimes people just come up with that stuff, hey?
Yeah, that's the magical aspect, because you often think, well, I didn't really come up with that. It's to come from somewhere else, especially the songs that come very quickly. Those to me are the best ones, where the words and the melody come together pretty much in one go, and that doesn't happen that often. But when that happens, you think, oh, I didn't really do that.
It just came through you, like you were just there, and it just came through you like you just were open, and it just sort of came through you.
Like a channel, yeah.
Like a lightning bolt.
I think Tom Waits is like that. I think Archie Roach used to say that. He said to me, he wrote, and they took the children away. We just woke up one morning and he just wrote it down. He sort of had it in a dream, but basically the whole song was just complete.
Yeah, no, that's like Satisfaction. I think the riff. He came up with the riff in a dream and woke up and taped it, and then woke up in the morning.
Well, that's the other thing about writing songs, is you can sort of come up with things, and if you, I mean, if any songwriters are out there, I suspect there might be a few. That it's more about. Everyone has different ways of doing it. I remember working with Neil Finn, and he wouldn't have any lyrics at all, and he'd just jam, and he'd get this kind of Irish kind of thing happening, this feel, and he'd have this amazing chords and weird riffs and things with dummy lyrics that were phonetically based. They weren't lyrically cogent at all. Then he'd come back later and do the lyrics, whereas someone like Don Walker comes in and writes the lyrics so thoroughly in a book, and it just refines them until there's no fat left on the lyrics at all. They just come round and round until there's just, that's it. Like, it's like, the Dead Sea Scrolls, like, that's it. And then in the last 10 minutes writes the chords and the melody. Like, there's no rules to it. It's just, there's none. It's just how you want to do it.
I must say, I find it easier to start with the words and then put a melody to it than to have a melody and put the words to it later.
Yeah, because maybe the words suggest the melody. Yeah,
they often do. They come together. They occur together.
Yeah.
So we're running probably running a bit late on time. How are we going for time, Mark? Should we start winding up a little bit? But I just wanted to ask you quickly, you guys, do you think it's possible to write like songs that are written for purely for commercial gain? Do you think it's possible to write a great song? Like we've only just begun. That Beautiful Carpenter song was actually written for a bank commercial by John Williams of all people. And Richard Carpenter, young Richard Carpenter, heard it and said, "Well, could would you mind if I wrote a little bit of a middle eight to it and stuff like that?" He said, "Yeah, sure, mate, go for it." And of course, I could think of the Monkeys' entire oeuvre. Think of the songs written for them. Just absolutely classic songs. Can anyone, what do you think of that?
I think commercial stuff can be great. There's no rules. That's what's good about all art forms. There's no rules. You can do what you want. Anything can be good. Anything, even if it's tainted by extreme commercialism, can still be great.
Well, pop music is a popular music. It's like that's come from the word popular. So it's sort of that's what people seem to like. That what's popular because it means more people like it. I mean, it's like that kind of. The Monkees was obviously a group that was created by Hollywood executives for a TV show, but they happened to employ these amazing songwriters like Neil Diamond at that point, and Boyce and Hart, and all these great writers, and they had amazing songs. And that's what you remember about the Monkees. If the Monkees did a gig now, they'd all play all of those songs because everyone loves those songs, and that's what popular music is, people loving songs.
Pleasant Valley Sunday, that's a banging song, isn't it?
You're right. Was that Mickey Dolenz?
No, it was
Carole King.
Carole King, yeah.
Carole King.
It's such a great song. It was just an absolutely amazing song. And their arrangement of it is so great. Last Train to Clarksville was, that Last Train to Clarksville was actually a Vietnam War protest song that kind of slipped under the teeny bopper radar, I think,
Another weird one of these was the Cuddly Toy.
Oh yeah, Harry Nilsson, we won't go into that. Yeah,
well, let's go into Harry Nilsson. I love Harry.
Yeah, that's right. Subject matter.
Wow.
Amanda, what do you think?
About what?
About do you think what's your favourite commercial pop song? I can think of I reckon it's an Aqua Barbie Girl. I reckon that's a great song. And Can't Get You Out of My Head, Kylie Minogue is another fantastic commercial song. Obviously written for a manufactured pop idol.
Streets of our town is definitely commercial.
Not really. It was not a hit. Yeah, look, as everyone's saying, there's no rules, and sometimes the dumbest things are the greatest things as well. I mean, look at the Ramones. Look at Hey Little Girl, I Want to Be Your Boyfriend. It's not rocket science literature, but it's a great song.
I mean, Streets of Our Town is brilliant, but it's because people love it that it's popular. So then it's commercial, and then even bands can lose the love of a song that they wrote because it becomes popular. It's strange, sort of weird, twisted thing that people don't even want to play their own music.
Except it actually wasn't commercial.
Wasn't it?
It was never a hit.
It was to me.
It's had a real revival, hasn't it? I keep hearing it on TV. Yeah.
Well, it's like bands like Velvet Underground. They didn't have any radio hits at the time, but everyone knows their songs and they get played all the time. Yeah. Now, so there's a few bands like that.
And Grant and Robert would love that analogy, Reg.
I used to hate playing Sad Face. I hate playing Live It Up, but that was the Mental's biggest hit, and it wasn't my favourite song. But I remember we were playing in Whyalla, and this big bikie came up to us, surrounded by his mates, and said, "Play Sad Face." And Greeny's like, "Okay." Just towering over us, play Sad Face.
Yeah, one day we didn't play Beds of Burning, and I think someone was in the loo, and these guys came in the loo in America and said, "Who do they think they are, the Grateful Dead?" Not playing their hit. The only one time we didn't do it, and we ended up just kept doing it. And in a way, a song like that, you can inhabit a song any way you want. You don't have to play it the same way every night. In fact, I wouldn't ever know how to play any of our songs after a while. You just go, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to do." You'd know the song, but you could play any way you want on the song, so you could constantly reinvent it. So it was a bit like Alzheimer's. You'd come back to it every day and it's different.
I always think it's a bit...
Alzheimer's is actually quite a good thing for a performing musician.
I always think it's a bit selfish when bands, they won't play any of their old hits. They just play their new record, and which might be great, but you need to keep the punters a little bit happy.
I like your old stuff better than your new stuff.
Yeah, agitated. I remember Martin Plaza made an interesting observation once. He said, look, as a songwriter, you get better with age, but no one wants to know because you're too old. And it's true with Martin, and same with Jim, and I'm sure all you guys, some of yours, Mandy, your new songs, and Reg's songs with Dog Trumpet, they just get better and better and more crafty as songs, but, everyone wants to listen to, Beyonce or whatever, I don't know, it's a sad fact of life, unless you're young and groovy, you're not going to get a look in.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you mentioned the Tower of Song before. I really believe in that idea. That it's just a great song is a great song, and Will You Love Me Tomorrow is still a great song whenever it comes on, or Goffin and King, or it could be something that came out last week, and you really don't. Even some Harry Styles stuff I really like. I think that's really enduring stuff. Some of it is really great, and you kind of, I just could be sort of ageist about it too, but I really think that's the best stuff's also ahead of us, really. I mean, but there's some great stuff in the past, surely, that we're all a product of, and as generations move through. My grandson loves Harry Styles. I'm subjected to Harry Styles on an hourly basis.
I like Taylor Swift. She writes some good songs.
Yeah, she's a great
She's a good
songwriter.
lyricist, writes some great lyrics.
Yeah, it's always going to be good, isn't it? Yeah, I think when a really good song is written, I think that somewhere in the eighth dimension, the nine muses all high five each other. That's to me. I think when a song, you write a really good song, it doesn't really matter. It's as long as you know it's good, and it sort of strikes a chord in the universe and makes it the world a better place. So look, we might wind it up. Let's have a few quick questions from the audience.
I got bones to pick with Amanda for her interview with Stuart on Community Radio 2SER, who said there'd be a few copies of your personal album which will be launched, I think, at the City Recital Centre at the end of the month at Red Eye Records. I went in there and they said, we've got thousands of them. And I nearly got a parking ticket trying to buy your $20 CD. And I've got a bone to pick with Reg Mombassa for giving me
Security.
a free ride in my taxi I gave you, and you said I'd put your name down at the Maroubra Seals. It didn't include a ticket for my lady friend at the time, and you said you're non-violent. I had 5 Tongan bouncers willing to punch me out of the room if I demanded 2 tickets at the door. Anyway, on Cattle and Cane...
Sorry about that.
Cattle and Cane, it's that double riff where it seems to be coming back on itself in the guitar solo towards the end that really captivates just about everyone. Was that intentional or accidental?
Well, it wasn't there for the recording of it, but I think it probably, I'm guessing, came about as a result of the unusual rhythm. As Murray sort of said, it sounds almost African. It's got that circular thing going on. And so I think it was just, it was a happy accident, as often the best parts of songs or pieces of music are accidents, and they come out of the blue in a really pleasantly surprising way.
Let's have a big hand for these absolutely fantastic musicians. And thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.